There's something about the woods, about the isolation, the quiet, that feels peaceful. Until it doesn't. Tonight, you'll hear 7 true stories from campers who went looking for peace under the stars and found something else waiting for them. Some heard footsteps outside their tent. Some never found their way back to it. These are not ghost stories. These are real encounters, documented, reported, remembered by the few who lived to tell them. You're watching Nightmare True Horror, and tonight, we're going camping. Don't forget your flashlight. The campfire crackled, casting flickers across my daughter Lila's marshmallows, her giggles blending with the chirp of crickets in Georgia's Okefenokee State Park. My wife, Sarah, sipped our tent, her teacher's patience fraying after a long day, wrangling Lila and me, a hardware store clerk with a knack for overpacking. We'd come for a weekend of s'mores and stargazing. The park's crowded, lots of small price for escape from Macon's grind. But the campers inside 12, just past the pines, were loud. Shouts, bottles clinking, a woman's voice hissing. Shut up. Hell here. My neck prickled. Lila, 6, looked up, her marshmallow dripping. Who's he? The night air was thick, smelling of pine and damp earth. Site 12's fire roared higher than park rules allowed, shadows jerking across their tents. 3 mismatched, one sagging like it'd been kicked. A man's voice barked, "We move it before dawn." Sarah's eyes met mine, her hand tightening on Lila's shoulder. Our site was tucked close, barely 20 feet from theirs, the pines no barrier to their noise. I forced a smile, probably just drunk, but the hum of their voices dropped, replaced by a sharp thud, like a shovel hitting dirt. Lila's eyes widened. "Daddy, what's that?" I stood, brushing crumbs from my jeans, and peered through the trees. A woman, short, wiry, in a stained hoodie, stood by their fire, her back to us, tossing something into the flames. It sparked, releasing a chemical stink like burning plastic. Another figure, tall and broad, dragged a heavy duffel toward their truck, its zipper glinting. My stomach twisted. Sarah whispered, "Evan, sit down." But I caught a snatch of their talk. "If it's found, we're done." My flashlight was in the tent, my phone at 10%. I crouched, heart thudding, as the woman turned, her face catching the firelight, gaunt, eyes darting toward our site. The crickets went quiet. A low scrape echoed from Site 12. Metal on stone, rhythmic, deliberate. Sarah pulled Lila into her lap, her voice a forced calm. Maybe they're fixing a tent peg, but Lila's lip quivered. "It sounds like digging." I grabbed my pocket knife, its blade dull but better than nothing. The park was packed, rangers a shout away, yet our site felt like an island. My phone buzzed, a text from my coworker, Jen, who'd camped here last month. "Have fun. Avoid Site 12. Sketchy vibes. Too late." The scraping stopped, replaced by a soft thump, like a bag hitting the ground. I crept to the edge of our site, the pine's shadows swallowing my flashlight's beam. Site 12's fire was lower now, but their truck's tailgate was open, the duffel gone. The wiry woman knelt by a patch of turned earth, patting it flat. The tall man loomed behind her, holding a shovel, its blade crusted with dirt. My breath caught. Yane's stories of park vanishings, hikers, campers, no trace, flashed through my mind. I backed away, twigs snapping underfoot. The woman's head snapped up, her eyes locking on the trees. My phone vibrated, screen glowing. Vibrated, screen glowing. An unknown number. "Mind your business." Sarah saw my face and yanked Lila toward the tent. "We're leaving," she hissed. I nodded, but the truck's engine growled to life, headlights sweeping the pines. The beam caught our tent, pinning us like moths. Lila whimpered, clutching Sarah's leg. I dove for the tent, zipping it shut, my knife useless against the roar of their engine. The headlights lingered, then cut off. Silence was worse. A faint hum started, like a generator, vibrating the ground. My phone buzzed again. A photo. Our tent taken minutes ago from Site 12's side. My hands shook. "They're watching us," I whispered. The hum grew, now a drone, buzzing in my skull. Sarah's face was pale, her voice a thread. What did they want? I thought of the duffel, the turned earth, the chemical stink. They were hiding something, something worth killing for. The woman's gaunt face haunted me, her desperation clear in every twitch. The man, though, his size, his grip on the shovel, felt like the real threat. A predator protecting his secret. A twig snapped outside. Close, followed by a low mutter. Check their car. My blood ran cold. Our keys were in the cooler 10 feet from the tent. I unzipped the tent an inch, peering out. The woman crouched by our SUV, her flashlight glinting off a crowbar. The man stood watch, shovel still in hand. Lila sobbed softly, Sarah muffling her against her chest. My phone lit up. Another text. Leave now or you're next. Attached was a video, grainy, showing our site from above, our tent glowing in the firelight. The camera panned to Site 12, where the duffel lay open, revealing plastic bags, white powder glistening inside. Drugs, enough to bury them for life. The video ended with the man's voice. No witnesses. Footsteps crunched toward us. I grabbed the knife, my pulse deafening. Sarah's eyes were wide, her teacher's calm gone. The Rangers, she whispered, but the station was a half-mile walk, and the park's noise drowned out screams. The footsteps stopped, inches from the tent. A shadow loomed, the shovel's outline sharp against the nylon. My phone buzzed. A live feed, me clutching the knife, filmed from inside our tent. A camera was hidden here, maybe in the lantern. I'd planned this, luring families to Site 11, testing who'd notice, who'd talk. Their motive was survival. Silence anyone who saw too much. Headlights flashed, a ranger's truck rolling through the loop. The shadow vanished, footsteps retreating. I unzipped the tent, grabbing the keys. Sarah and Lila behind me. We sprinted for the SUV, the woman's crowbar, abandoned by the tire. The ranger stopped, his flashlight sweeping Site 12. Everything okay? He called. I stammered about the noises, the texts, showing him the video. His face hardened. Stay here. Stay here. He radioed for backup approaching their site. The truck was gone. Site 12's tents collapsed, the duffel missing. The turned earth was smooth, like it'd never been touched. Rangers found the camera in our lantern, wired to a burner phone. Site 12's campers, identified as Lila and Trey Morrow, small-time dealers, had been dodging a cartel, hiding their stash in the park, using cameras to spot snitches. Their desperation to stay hidden drove them to terrorize anyone too curious. Their violence a warning. The cops found their truck abandoned 50 miles away. Blood on the seats, no bodies. The duffel surfaced in a swamp, half the drugs gone. Half the drugs gone. I moved my family to Savannah. Quit camping. Sarah checks locks obsessively. Lila draws shovels in her sleep. Last week, a text came from an unknown number. A photo of our new backyard. A spiral carved into the oak. The timestamp was last night. It was supposed to be the perfect getaway. Me and my friends, Nate, Kevin, and Sarah, escaping from the monotony of our office jobs in San Francisco. We chose the Sierra Nevadas, a weekend camping trip we'd planned meticulously for months. We'd hiked deep into the wilderness, away from trails and tourists, looking for solitude beneath the towering pines and clear, starry skies. By late afternoon, we'd found a spot that felt perfect, sheltered by tall trees, near a creek with cold, clear water. We pitched our tents, cracked open some beers, and built our fire pit carefully, stones arranged neatly in a circle. That evening, laughter echoed around the campfire as we roasted hot dogs and recounted embarrassing college stories. As darkness fell, the forest around us grew silent, and something about that silence felt heavy, unnatural even. Nate stopped laughing mid-sentence, squinting into the dark. You guys hear that? He whispered. We all went quiet, listening closely. For a moment, nothing. Then came a faint sound, branches rustling, footsteps soft and slow, just beyond the circle of firelight. Sarah shifted nervously. Probably a deer, Kevin said, though his voice lacked confidence. The sounds stopped. We convinced ourselves it was nothing, and kept talking. But the mood had shifted. Our laughter was forced now, uneasy. It wasn't until morning that we discovered something truly strange. Nate wandered off to collect firewood, and returned quickly. Face pale, eyes wide. Guys, come look at this, he said nervously. Just 30 feet away from our own campsite was another fire pit. Stones stacked haphazardly, ashes still fresh, warm to the touch. Charred logs smoked faintly, clearly used recently. None of us had built it. Who would set up so close? Sarah whispered, glancing around warily. I stared at the ground around the pit. Footprints, clear and deep, circled chaotically. Someone had stood here watching us. They were here last night, I said quietly. A chill creeping down my spine. Kevin forced a laugh. Maybe it was just other hikers. Then where's their gear? Why didn't we hear them leave? Nate asked tensely. We returned to camp, packing quickly, deciding unanimously to find a new spot miles away. Paranoia clung to us as we walked, constantly glancing over shoulders. The quiet felt suffocating. That evening we set up camp again, tense but determined to shake off our nerves. Zara cooked dinner. Nate checked the map obsessively, and Kevin kept scanning the tree line with nervous eyes. I tried telling jokes to lighten the mood, but every sound seemed amplified. As darkness enveloped the forest again, our uneasy laughter faded. Around midnight, the silence shattered. A sudden sharp snap echoed loudly, followed by rapid footsteps crunching through underbrush. "Who's there?" Kevin shouted, voice shaking. Silence. Then, from behind our tents, a single soft laugh drifted toward us, cold, mocking. My blood ran ice cold. Whoever it was had followed us here. "Leave us alone," Sarah yelled, voice trembling with fear. Silence fell again, heavy and sinister. None of us slept. We sat back to back by the fire, eyes wide and darting, adrenaline pulsing through every vein. At dawn, exhausted and jumpy, we packed silently as we began our trek back toward the trailhead. Nate froze suddenly, his face drained of color, eyes locked on something ahead. Pinned to a tree was a Polaroid photo, edges fluttering in the breeze. It was us, taken just last night from within the dark woods, gathered fearfully around our own fire. Scrawled beneath in rough handwriting were the chilling words. "Next time, you'll never leave." Panic surged. We ran blindly down the trail, packs bouncing wildly. Every shadow, every snapping twig made my heart leap into my throat. Finally reaching the parking lot, we found Kevin's SUV with its tires slashed. Windshield shattered violently, glass scattered everywhere. A note fluttered beneath the wiper. Too late. My pulse pounded loudly. Kevin Dialet 911 frantically, hands shaking so badly he dropped the phone twice. Sheriff deputies arrived swiftly, asking endless questions. We explained everything, the fire pits, the photos, the threats. Their eyes grew dark, uneasy. "You're lucky," one officer finally muttered quietly. "We found missing campers out here before, usually not alive. They searched extensively, but whoever stalked us vanished into the vast wilderness without a trace." Days passed with no answers. Returning home felt surreal. Normal routines seemed impossible. I couldn't shake the fear. Every night, sleep eluded me. I kept hearing that quiet, mocking laughter whispering from dark corners. Paranoia gnawed constantly at my mind. Weeks later, another envelope arrived at my office. Hands trembling, I tore it open. Inside were more Polaroids, this time from outside my own apartment. Me cooking dinner, watching TV, unaware I was being watched again. Written neatly on the back, one simple, terrifying message. "Remember, next time, you won't leave." My world shattered again. Whoever tormented us wasn't done. Police were sympathetic but helpless. No leads, no evidence beyond those photos. Months passed, but dread remained constant. I'd jump at shadows, constantly checking behind me. My life became a series of glances over my shoulder. One evening, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Heart thumping, I answered hesitantly. A cold, familiar laugh filled the silence. "You thought you'd escape, didn't you? What do you want?" My voice shook uncontrollably. Silence stretched painfully, then finally, softly spoken. "You. Afraid. Forever." The line went dead. The line went dead. I knew then, with sickening certainty, I'd never truly escaped. None of us had. Whoever had stalked us in those woods wasn't just some random lunatic. They chose us deliberately, feeding off our fear. Every shadow I see now, every unexpected noise at night, I imagine him there, waiting patiently, endlessly, savoring my terror. Maybe that's the cruelest truth. He doesn't have to touch us to hurt us. Fear itself is his weapon, and he knows exactly how to wield it. The morning fog clung to the pines like gauze, turning Medbaker Wilderness into a scene from a dream. My 3-day solo camping trip was supposed to be therapeutic, a chance to clear my head after the messy breakup and job transition. I'd chosen a remote spot at Pinnacle Lake, 6 miles from the nearest ranger station, far enough from the popular trails to guarantee solitude. That morning, I woke early, brewed coffee on my portable stove, and decided to explore a bit before breaking camp. I needed photos for the outdoor lifestyle blog I'd been neglecting. Just a quick 2-hour hike, I thought. I'd follow the creek upstream, snap some waterfall shots, and be back before noon. I marked my location on my phone's GPS app, pocketed my compass, and headed out with a day pack containing water, trail mix, and my camera. The well-worn path followed the creek for about a mile before branching off toward a promontory with promising views. I remembered the forest ranger's warning from yesterday. Stick to marked trails. People get turned around easy up here. I should have listened. The path grew faint as I climbed, eventually disappearing into a carpet of pine needles and moss. No problem, I thought. I'll just follow the ridgeline back to the creek. The morning sun had burned away most of the fog, but the forest canopy remained thick overhead, casting everything in a perpetual twilight. Birds called overhead. Ravens, probably. Their caws echoing strangely through the trees. 2 hours stretched to 3. The ridge I'd been following split, unexpectedly. I checked my phone. No signal. My compass seemed confused, the needle swinging lazily before settling in a direction that couldn't possibly be north. I fought down the flutter of panic in my chest. I wasn't some novice. I'd been hiking since I was 12. This was just a temporary setback. By early afternoon, the flutter had become a steady drumbeat of anxiety. Nothing looked familiar. Nothing looked familiar. The distant peak I'd been using as a landmark had disappeared behind the trees. The temperature dropped as clouds gathered overhead, and the first fat raindrops began to fall, tapping against leaves like impatient fingers. As the rain intensified, I spotted a break in the trees ahead, a small clearing that might offer better visibility. I pushed through a thicket of ferns, soaked now from the downpour, and stumbled into what was unmistakably a campsite. Relief washed over me. Other hikers meant directions, possibly a map, maybe even a radio. Hello? I called, my voice immediately swallowed by the dense forest. Anyone here? No response except the steady drum of rain on leaves. The campsite was small but well equipped. A 3-person tent, a tarp strung between trees, sheltering a camp kitchen, a backpack propped against a log. My relief curdled into unease as I approached. Something was wrong with the scene. Steam rose from a pot of what looked like half-prepared pasta, the water now cold but evidence that it had been recently boiling. A titanium mug lay on its side. Coffee spilled across a trail guide open to a page about Pinnacle Lake. A folding chair was knocked over as if someone had stood up in a hurry. Hello? I tried again, louder this time. Park ranger? Anyone? The tent flap was unzipped, billowing slightly in the breeze. Inside, a sleeping bag lay rumpled. A headlamp still glowing faintly on a stuff sack serving as a pillow. An open paperback was splayed spine up, pages fluttering. Whoever had been here had left suddenly, mid-meal, mid-chapter. Not the behavior of an experienced camper. No one leaves a camp stove unattended. No one abandons gear in the wilderness. The backpack caught my eye, bright red with distinctive yellow stripes, a custom patch showing a mountain silhouette against a full moon. I'd seen it before, yesterday, at the trailhead, on a missing person poster. Missing. Daniel Foster, 28, last seen. Pinnacle Lake Trail, September 12, carrying. Red and yellow Northridge backpack. Today was September 19. Daniel had been missing for a week, but the food in the pot couldn't be more than an hour old. A branch snapped somewhere in the forest behind me. I spun around, heart hammering against my ribs. The rain had intensified, reducing visibility to a few dozen yards. Water dripped from the trees, each plop and patter making me flinch. Who's there? My voice cracked. Forest Service? Another snap. Closer this time, followed by something that might have been a whisper. I ducked beneath the tarp, grabbing a heavy cooking pot. A pathetic weapon, but better than nothing. Daniel's backpack beckoned. Would it hold a radio? A satellite phone? I rummaged through the side pockets, finding only energy bars and a water filter. The main compartment was partially unzipped, I tugged it open further, then froze. Inside lay a coil of climbing rope, neatly arranged around a collection of driver's licenses. At least a dozen. Their faces staring up at me. On top was a small notebook, its pages covered in tick marks arranged in groups of 5. Next to each group was a date. The most recent entry was from yesterday. A low, rhythmic scraping sound came from just beyond the edge of the clearing. Metal on stone, like someone sharpening a blade. My hands shook as I carefully closed the backpack. This wasn't Daniel's camp. Daniel was never lost. Daniel was a trophy. I backed toward the opposite side of the clearing, eyes searching for a path. Any path away from here. The scraping stopped. The rain seemed to pause, as if holding its breath. "You're early." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, casual and conversational. I wasn't expecting company today. I bolted, crashing through underbrush. Slipping on wet pine needles, I fled downhill. The universal direction of civilization, of roads, of help. Branches clawed at my face and arms. Behind me, I heard unhurried footsteps. A steady pursuit that was somehow more terrifying than a frantic chase. "You're going the wrong way." The voice was closer now. I changed direction, veering right, then left, trying to create distance. My foot caught on an exposed root, and I tumbled down a short embankment, landing hard against the trunk of a massive cedar. Pain shot through my ankle. Footsteps approached, deliberate and patient. I pressed myself against the cedar, making myself as small as possible behind a curtain of ferns. Through gaps in the fronds, I caught glimpses of a figure moving through the trees. Tall, dressed in dark clothes dampened by rain, carrying something that glinted dully in one hand. The footsteps stopped. I held my breath. "I know these woods," the voice said calmly. "Every trail, every creek, every hollow. No one finds me. I find them." He was talking about Daniel, about the licenses in the backpack, about me. "The ranger station is 8 miles that way." A pause, "But you'll never make it." A beam of light swept over the forest floor, stopping inches from my hiding place. A high-powered flashlight, unnecessary in daylight, unless you were searching the shadows. "Come out." The voice coaxed. I promised to make it quick. Not like the others. My mind raced. 8 miles to the ranger station. Impossible on a twisted ankle. My own campsite was closer, but in which direction? I needed a distraction. I needed a distraction. My hand closed around a rock, wet and mossy but substantial. I hurled it as far as I could to my right. It crashed through branches before landing with a satisfying thud. The flashlight beam jerked toward the sound. "Clever," the voice said, a note of amusement creeping in, but not clever enough. The beam swung back, illuminating my hiding place. I stared into the light, temporarily blinded. Behind it stood a silhouette. A man in his 40s, perhaps, bearded, wearing what might have once been a Park Service jacket. "There you are," he said softly. I scrambled backward, ignoring the pain lancing through my ankle. "People know where I am," I lied. "They're expecting me back," he chuckled, the sound like stones rattling in a dry creek bed. That's what the last one said. And the one before. He stepped closer, in his free hand. The object I'd glimpsed earlier revealed itself. A hunting knife with a serrated edge, worn from use but gleaming at the tip. Do you know how many people go missing in national forests every year? Hundreds. They blame it on exposure, on animal attacks, on disorientation. Another step. They never consider that some of us prefer to live outside their world, that we've carved our own territories. My back pressed against a boulder, nowhere left to retreat. "Please," I whispered. "I won't tell anyone. I'll just go." He crouched down, bringing the knife into my field of vision. No one ever just goes. Thunder crashed overhead, startlingly close. The man glanced up reflexively. I struck. My hiking boot connected with his knee, not hard enough to break it, but enough to unbalance him. He toppled sideways, knife and flashlight tumbling from his hands. I lunged for the knife, fingers closing around the handle as I rolled away. He recovered quickly, diving for me with surprising agility. His weight crashed into me, driving the air from my lungs. Strong hands closed around my throat. "I was going to be merciful," he hissed, his face inches from mine. "Quick, clean." But now, the knife was pinned between us, blade pointed outward. As he pressed down, I felt the resistance as the tip met his jacket, then yielded. His eyes widened in shock. What, he gasped, rolling off me, hands clutching at his side, where blood bloomed across the faded green fabric. I scrambled to my feet, knife still in hand. The man lay on his back, rain washing across his stunned face. The wound wasn't deadly. A flesh wound, perhaps. But it bought me time. "You won't make it," he called after me as I limped away. "Not in this rain. Not with that ankle. I'll find you." I kept moving, forcing my injured ankle to bear weight. Each step sent shockwaves of pain up my leg, but adrenaline propelled me forward. The rain had become a deluge, turning the forest floor into a treacherous slide of mud and decaying vegetation. By some miracle, I recognized a lightning-scarred pine I'd photographed that morning. Then a distinctive rock formation. I was heading in the right direction, toward my camp, toward safety. Behind me, I heard thrashing. He was following, slower now, but determined. I picked up my pace, ignoring the white-hot agony in my ankle. The knife felt heavy in my hand, an unfamiliar weight that I both despised and clung to. When my tent finally appeared through the trees, I nearly sobbed with relief. I grabbed my emergency pack and satellite phone, thumbing the SOS button as I'd been shown during orientation. 3 short beeps confirmed the distress signal was transmitting. Now I just had to survive until help arrived. I took shelter behind a large fallen tree 20 yards from my camp, giving me a clear view of the approach. Minutes stretched into an hour. The rain gradually subsided to a gentle patter. My ankle throbbed relentlessly. Movement at the edge of the clearing. A shadow detached itself from the deeper darkness between the trees. The man moved cautiously now, one hand pressed to his side, the other holding a branch like a club. He approached my tent slowly, circling it like a predator. "I know you're here," he called, voice strained with pain and something like respect. "You're different from the others. Fighters last longer out here." He began systematically searching the campsite, checking behind trees, inside the tent, moving closer to my hiding place with each sweep. The satellite phone vibrated in my pocket, a response to my SOS. Help was coming. But not soon enough. 20 feet away now. 15:10. The distant pulse of helicopter rotors broke the silence. The man froze, head tilted, listening. The sound grew louder. Search and rescue responding to my distress call. His face contorted with rage, then resignation. He looked directly at my hiding place, as if he'd known all along. "Another time," he said simply, before melting back into the forest. When the helicopter landed 30 minutes later, I was sitting by my tent, knife still clutched in my white-knuckled grip. The rescue team found me dehydrated, ankle severely sprained, but alive. I told them everything. The abandoned campsite, the collection of licenses, the man who hunted people through the wilderness. They radioed for law enforcement backup and organized a search party. By nightfall, they'd found the campsite exactly as I described it, but the backpack with its grisly contents was gone. The man, the hunter, had vanished. They identified 3 of the people from my description of the licenses. All solo hikers reported missing over the past 2 years. Search teams combed the area for weeks but found no trace of bodies, no evidence beyond what I'd seen. That was 6 months ago. My ankle healed. I gave statements, looked at sketches, tried to move on. I haven't gone camping since. Yesterday, I received an unmarked package at my apartment. Inside was a single item, a waterproof notebook, its pages filled with groups of 5 tick marks, and a new entry dated tomorrow. Lake Tahoe shimmered under a blanket of stars thick enough to feel like you could reach out and stir them with a spoon. Chloe and I had found the perfect campsite, secluded, nestled amongst towering Jeffrey pines, miles down a winding dirt road. Just the crackle of our campfire, the chirping crickets, and the vast, peaceful silence of the Sierra Nevada. We'd spent the day hiking, swimming in icy mountain streams, feeling utterly disconnected from the noise of the world. This was exactly what we needed. We stayed up late, talking by the fire, watching embers pulse like sleepy eyes in the darkness. Eventually, the chill drove us into our tent, zipped in tight, cozy in our sleeping bags. The silence outside was absolute, not just quiet, but a profound stillness, the kind that presses gently on your eardrums. I was drifting off, Chloe already breathing softly beside me. Then, a sound. Not a twig snap or an animal rustle. A voice, low, hesitant, right outside the thin nylon wall of our tent. "Hello? Anyone awake in there?" Chloe and I both went rigid, instantly wide awake. My heart leaped into my throat. Who would be out here at... I glanced at my watch. Almost 2 a.m. We hadn't seen another soul since leaving the main highway. "Look," the voice continued, closer now, right by the tent flap. "Sorry to bother you so late. Just wondering if you folks might have any duct tape I could borrow." Duct tape? At 2 in the morning, in the middle of nowhere. The request hung in the air. Bizarre, unsettling. Chloe squeezed my arm, her eyes wide in the darkness. "Oh, no. Sorry," I called back, trying to keep my voice steady, pitching it louder than his. "Don't have any." A lie. We had a small roll in the emergency kit in the car. There was a pause. A silence that stretched thick with unspoken things. I could almost feel him standing there, just beyond the fabric. Could picture unseen eyes peering at our little dome of light. "Okay," the voice said finally, flat, devoid of disappointment or any other emotion. "Thanks anyway." We held our breath, straining to hear him walk away. The crunch of boots on pine needles, the sound of twigs snapping underfoot. Nothing. Absolute silence returned instantly, as if he had simply dissolved into the night air. No rustling leaves, no fading footsteps, and crucially later, no sound of a car engine starting or driving away down the dirt road. He had arrived and departed like a ghost. Sleep was impossible after that. Every forest noise, the sigh of wind, the distant hoot of an owl, the scurry of some small creature, sounded like him returning. Was he watching us? Circling the tent? How did he get here without a vehicle? Why duct tape, of all things? The question echoed in the suffocating darkness of the tent. What do you need duct tape for? Alone in the woods at 2 a.m. The possible answers were uniformly horrifying. Chloe was trembling beside me. "Liam, that wasn't right," she whispered, her voice shaking. There was something wrong with his voice. Empty. I knew what she meant. It wasn't just the request. It was the delivery. Flat. Detached. Like someone asking for the time, not emergency supplies in the wilderness. We lay there, rigid, until the first gray light of dawn filtered through the pines. Neither of us had slept. As soon as it was light enough to see, we were out of the tent, eyes scanning the surrounding woods, paranoia making every shadow seem menacing. There were no obvious signs of disturbance around the campsite, except near the tree line, just where the man might have emerged, was a single muddy boot print that didn't match either of our hiking boots. It was partially scuffed, pointing away from the camp towards the deeper woods. Confirmation he was real, yet somehow making it worse. We broke camp with frantic speed, stuffing gear into bags, collapsing the tent with trembling hands, constantly glancing over our shoulders into the trees. The peaceful forest sanctuary now felt like hostile territory, eyes watching our every move. We threw everything into the back of my SUV, slammed the doors, locked them, and peeled out, tires spitting gravel on the dirt road. As we bumped along the track back towards the highway, maybe half a mile from our campsite, I saw something glinting through the trees to the right. I slowed down instinctively. Pulled deep into a thicket, almost completely hidden from the road, was an old, dark-colored sedan. Its windows were fogged up from the inside, and one of the rear passenger doors was slightly ajar. We hadn't seen it on our way in, and it was deliberately concealed. No sign of anyone around it. Chloe gasped, pointing towards the ground near the car's open door. A small coil of rope lay discarded on the pine needles, and next to it, something that looked disturbingly like a freshly dug patch of earth, hastily covered with leaves. I didn't need to see any more. I slammed my foot on the accelerator, not looking back, tires whining on the dirt, until we hit the blessed asphalt of the highway. We drove for an hour in silence, before pulling into a brightly lit gas station, miles away. We debated calling the police, the park rangers, but what would we say? A man asked for duct tape. We saw a weird car. It felt flimsy, unreal, like something out of a nightmare. We had no proof, only a chilling encounter and a deep, unsettling fear. We never went back camping near Tahoe. The memory of that night, the strange request, the utter silence of his departure, The hidden car. It lingers. What was the duct tape for? Who was he? What happened near that concealed sedan? We'll never know. But sometimes when I'm somewhere quiet, somewhere remote, I hear a twig snap in the darkness, and I feel that same cold dread creep up my spine. And I wonder who else might be out there, needing duct tape in the dead of night. I'd always loved the hush of the desert, the way everything slowed and stilled as the sun blistered overhead. This trip was supposed to be my reset, a solo camping hike through Arizona's Sonoran wilds. 3 days without cell service or deadlines. I told myself I could handle the heat, the silence, the loneliness. I'd packed smart. Water, topo maps, a GPS, and a battered copy of Desert Solitaire. But the desert is not just empty space. It's a maze, and one bad turn can swallow you whole. The first day was easy. I set up camp near a dry riverbed, the towering saguaros casting long evening shadows. I cooked beans on my little stove and watched the sky bloom from red to indigo. Coyotes yipped somewhere far off. I felt safe, almost invisible. On day 2, I set out for a longer hike, aiming to find a rumored spring tucked in a box canyon. The air shimmered with heat. My boots kicked up dust. I saw almost no one. Just a single pair of distant hikers, their shapes wavering behind the mirage. By noon, the GPS started acting up, freezing, then blinking out. I shrugged it off and pressed on, trusting my sense of direction. That was a mistake. By mid-afternoon, I'd lost the trail. The landmarks all blurred together. Jagged rocks, thorny mesquite, endless sand. My canteen was half empty, sweat prickling under my shirt. When I tried the GPS again, it was dead. My map was little help. The winding arroyos all looked the same in the relentless sun. By evening, I was rationing the last of my water, lips cracked, tongue thick. Every sound was amplified. The distant buzz of insects, the crunch of my own footsteps, the slow, steady thump of my heart. I tried to retrace my steps, but the world spun with exhaustion. That's when I noticed the vultures, 3 of them, gliding low across the sky, circling a patch of brush maybe half a mile ahead. Their wings caught the dying light, black and ragged. I'd read that vultures often gather where there's water, or at least where something had died. In that moment, thirst and curiosity pulled me in equal measure. As I stumbled closer, the smell hit first, a sickly, sweet, meaty rot that clung to the back of my throat. The vultures hopped back from the brush as I approached, watching with blank, prehistoric eyes. Something was wrong about the way they scattered. No frantic flapping, just a wary, practiced retreat. I pushed through the tangled mesquite, thorns raking my arms. That's when I saw it, a human body, half covered by a sheet of plastic and a scattering of dry branches. The flesh was mottled and swollen, purplish in the places the sun hadn't reached. The face was turned away, hair matted to the skull. One hand, bloated and gray, still clutched a piece of torn fabric. I staggered back, bile rising. My mind tried to process, to find some explanation. Lost hiker, heat stroke, natural tragedy. But the plastic, the way the brush had been arranged, told a different story. This was no accident. Someone had wanted this body to disappear. My heart hammered in my chest. The world felt suddenly smaller, the shadows deeper. The vultures watched from a few feet away, patient and silent. I fumbled for my phone, praying for a signal. No bars. I tried to remember the last time I'd seen another person, the last place I'd had service, the distance back to my camp. A sound snapped through the silence, a dry twig cracking behind me. I froze. The desert seemed to hold its breath. Another snap, closer. I ducked behind a boulder, pulse roaring in my ears. I peered through a gap in the rock. A man emerged from the brush, moving with the cautious confidence of someone who knew the land. He wore faded jeans and a sun-bleached cap pulled low over his face. He stopped near the body, crouching to adjust the plastic, glancing around with quick, jerky movements. My blood ran cold. He was checking on his work, making sure the body was still hidden. I pressed myself flat, trying not to breathe. My mind raced. Should I run? Stay hidden? My water was almost gone, my legs trembling with fatigue. If he saw me, there would be nowhere to go. No trail, no witnesses. Just the endless empty desert. The man stood and scanned the horizon. For a terrifying moment, his gaze swept over my hiding spot. I barely dared to blink. Finally, he seemed satisfied. He kicked sand over the brush, then turned and moved off into the scrub, heading away from where I'd come. I waited, counting my breaths, until the sun dipped behind the hills and the world turned ghostly blue. When I was sure he was gone, I crawled from my hiding place and skirted the edge of the clearing, careful not to draw the vultures' attention again. I had to get out, had to tell someone. I forced myself to head in the opposite direction from the man, using the last light to find higher ground. My vision blurred, each step a battle against thirst, fear, and the oppressive hush of the desert. Hours later, the moon rose, silver and cold. I followed the stars, half remembering what I'd learned in a survival class years ago. Eventually, I saw a faint orange glow on the horizon. Campfires, headlights, salvation. I stumbled toward it, collapsing on the shoulder of a dirt road as a pickup truck slowed to a stop. The driver, a weathered woman in ranger green, helped me into her cab, pressed a bottle of water into my shaking hands. I told her everything, every detail tumbling out in a fevered rush. When we returned with law enforcement the next morning, the body was gone. Only the vultures remained, circling higher, indifferent as ever. They found drag marks in the sand, traces of plastic, a few strands of hair. No footprints, no tire tracks. Just the hush of the desert and the memory of a crime erased before it could be solved. Some nights I dream of circling vultures, of plastic rustling in the wind, of eyes watching from the brush. I wake with the taste of dust and death in my mouth, wondering if the man ever saw me, if he's still out there, waiting for another hiker to wander off trail. Sometimes when I drive past the Sonoran wilds, I spot vultures wheeling overhead, and I wonder what secrets the desert is hiding, and who else is lost out there, waiting to be found. The pine-scented air should have been calming. Instead, it made my skin prickle. I'd chosen this remote corner of Colorado's San Isabel National Forest for dispersed camping precisely because it promised solitude. No RVs, no noisy families, just me and my tent for 3 days of post-divorce decompression. The ranger at the station had circled the area on my map with a yellow highlighter. Plenty of spots past the old logging road, he'd said. Just watch for boundary markers. I found the perfect site as dusk fell. A flat clearing bordered by aspens, a creek burbling nearby. I just finished staking my tent when I noticed the first sign. A rusted no trespassing sign nailed to a tree, half hidden by ivy. Odd, since this was supposed to be public land. But old property disputes were common in these parts. I shrugged it off. The fireflies came out as I boiled water for dinner. That's when I heard the first crack of a branch. Evening. The voice came from the tree line. A man stood there, backlit by the fading sun. Late 50s, wearing a quilted flannel jacket despite the August heat. His boots looked military issue. Beside him, a black Labrador mix growled low in its throat. "Hi," I said, forcing a smile. "Just camping for the night. Not here, you ain't." He took a step forward. The dog's growl intensified. "This is private property." I gestured to my map on the picnic table. "Ranger said this was national forest past the..." "Ranger's wrong." He pointed to a cairn of stones I hadn't noticed near the creek. "Boundaries there. You're on Hale land. Been Hale land since '62. The name rang a bell. I had passed a mailbox a mile back labeled Hale in peeling letters, its post leaning like a drunkard. "I'll move first thing, I promised. It's getting dark and..." Now, his hand drifted to the hunting knife on his belt. "Or I move you." The dog lunged suddenly, stopping just short of my fire pit, teeth bared. I scrambled backward, knocking over my pot of boiling water. Steam hissed between us. "Jasper, heel!" The command came too late to feel genuine. The man stared at me, unblinking. "You got 5 minutes to pack up." They watched as I tore down my tent with shaking hands, the dog's nostrils flaring at my every movement. When I peeled out of my Subaru, the man stood in my rearview mirror until the bend in the road swallowed him. Night 1, relocated. The new site was half a mile east, safely past the cairn. I triple-checked the map. Definitely public land. Definitely public land. But sleep wouldn't come. Every rustle of leaves became footsteps, Every owl hoot sounded like a stage distraction. At 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Wrong side of the creek. I sat bolt upright. No service out here. The message shouldn't have delivered, let alone existed. When I tried to call the number, it rang once before going to a recorded voice. You've reached the Hale family. Leave a message. I spent the rest of the night in my car. Keys in the ignition. Day 2. The heat wave hit hard. By noon, temperatures soared to 98 F. I hiked to the creek to filter water, following what I thought was the same path from yesterday. That's when I found the other tents, 3 of them. Vintage canvas pup tents rotting in a shaded hollow. Sleeping bags mummified by mold. A rusted Coleman stove from the 70s. And hanging from a tree, a cracked leather backpack with a 1982 University of Colorado ID. Marcus Delwood, student hash 43,187. Google wouldn't load, but the pit in my stomach didn't need confirmation. People didn't abandon thousands of dollars of gear without reason. A twig snapped behind me. I turned, expecting the dog. Instead, a woman in a sun-faded dress stood watching from the ridge. Early 30s, her blonde hair streaked with gray. She held a wicker basket overflowing with wild onions. "You're still here," she said, not unkindly. I moved, like he asked. She glanced at the ruins of the campsite. Not far enough. "Who are you?" "Lila Hale. That man yesterday was my Uncle Boyd." She stepped closer, eyes darting to the surrounding trees. "He's protective of our land. Always has been since the incident." "What incident?" Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You know how small towns are. Old stories get twisted." She pulled a mason jar from her basket. Cloudy liquid with floating roots. "Here, for the heat, ginseng tea." I hesitated. She unscrewed the lid and drank first. A long swallow. "See? Safe? The tea? Tasted earthy. Bitter." I drank to be polite. Lila watched me intently. "Where's Marcus?" I asked, holding up the ID. Her expression flattened. "Never came home. They never do. Night 2 fever dreams, sweat-soaked. I thrashed in my sleeping bag. Images flickering. Boyd's knife, Lila's basket, Marcus Delwood's grinning skeleton. I woke to vomit, bile scorching my throat. Moonlight revealed blisters on my arms where the tea had spilled. The sound that woke me came again. A rhythmic thudding. Axe on wood. Close. I crawled from the tent. The clearing was empty, but the noise continued from the direction of the Hale property. I followed. Nausea be damned. Phone flashlight piercing the gloom. The axe struck again. And again. And again. Not wood. Boyd stood over a shallow pit, shirtless, heaving an axe into something wrapped in blue top. The dog waited nearby, tongue lolling. A hand slipped free of the tarp. Pale, fingers curled inward. I ran. Vomit and terror propelled me. Branches tore at my face. Behind me, the axe stopped. The dog barked once, excited. Dawn they found me at the ranger station, babbling about bodies and poison tea. 2 deputies followed me back to the campsite. The rotting tents were gone. The AED probably blew away, they said. The pit, filled with fresh soil and planted with Lila's wild onions. They humored me with a property search. The Hale's land yielded nothing but rusted tools and a cellar full of preserves. Boyd smiled as they left. "City folks don't know wilderness," he told the deputies. "Imagination runs wild." Epilogue: the hospital blamed my hallucinations on heat stroke and a bad reaction to wild ginseng. The text? A glitch, they said. No record of it exists. But last night, a package arrived at my new apartment. No return address. Inside, a mason jar of cloudy tea and a note in elegant script. "You should have stayed. I still have the name tag. It's inside a plastic evidence bag now. But I can trace the faded marker letters through the seal. Death 2007. Just holding it makes my hands tremble. The detective said the case would probably go cold. Too much time had passed. Too little evidence remained. The Blue Ridge Mountains keep their secrets buried deep. 6 months ago, my friends and I decided to spend a long weekend hiking a remote stretch of the Blue Ridge Parkway. Alex had just finished his residency at Winston-Salem Memorial. Maya was celebrating her promotion at the architecture firm. and I was running from a messy breakup. We'd been planning this trip since college, a return to the mountains we'd explored during spring breaks years before. The first day was perfect. We set out from Dalton Park Campground, the October air crisp and fragrant with pine, while colors painted the ridges in fiery oranges and yellows. The higher we climbed, the more the world below seemed to disappear. By sunset, we'd reached our first campsite, a small clearing about half a mile off the marked trail. Should we really be off the designated path? Maya asked as Alex hammered in the last tent stake. Relax, he replied. I've been camping these hills since I was a kid. Rangers don't care as long as you're responsible. I busied myself gathering kindling while they bickered. That's when I first noticed it. A massive oak standing apart from the surrounding pines. Something about its silhouette against the darkening sky seemed wrong, misshapen. I moved closer, drawn by curiosity. The trunk was massive, easily 6 feet in diameter. But what made me freeze were the ropes. Dozens of them, wrapped around the circumference of the tree. Each rope had been tied with precision, forming neat horizontal rows. And hanging from each one, a small rectangular tag fluttered in the evening breeze. Guys, I called, my voice catching. You need to see this. Maya reached me first, her headlamp illuminating the bizarre spectacle. Alex arrived seconds later, his medical caution immediately evident in how he kept his distance. What the hell? Maya whispered, moving closer to examine the nearest tag. They have names on them. And dates. She was right. Each rope bore a simple plastic tag, the kind you might find on luggage or a gym locker. Each displayed a handwritten name and a year. Some were weathered and faded, barely legible. Others looked disturbingly new. Daniel, 1998. Alex read from one. Christopher, 21. Melissa, 2013. Maybe it's some kind of memorial, I suggested, like those roadside crosses for accident victims. Alex shook his head. In the middle of nowhere, miles from any road. No flowers, no photos, just names and ropes. The silence that followed felt heavy, oppressive. The forest sounds, the chirping insects, the rustle of leaves, seemed to amplify in the growing darkness. Maya's flashlight beam jumped from tag to tag. The oldest one I can find is from 1983, she said. The newest is... She stopped abruptly. What? I prompted. It says Jeremy, 23. That's this year. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the mountain air. 2023 was barely 2 months old. Let's get back to camp, Alex said firmly. We shouldn't be messing with this. We retreated to our tents, but sleep came fitfully. Every snapping twig, every whisper of wind through the canopy jolted me awake. Around 2 a.m., I heard it. A rhythmic sound, like someone digging. Thunk, pause. Thump, pause. Coming from the direction of the tree, I nudged Alex awake. Do you hear that? He listened, then nodded grimly. Should we check it out? I whispered. Are you insane? Maya hissed from her sleeping bag. That's literally how horror movies start. We stayed put, listening as the sounds continued for nearly an hour before stopping abruptly. None of us slept afterward. Morning brought fog so thick we could barely see 20 feet ahead. The air felt heavy with moisture, clinging to our skin as we made coffee over the camp stove. No one mentioned the sounds from the night before, but we all kept glancing toward the tree, now hidden in the mist. We should report it when we get back, Maya said finally. Those could be missing persons. Alex nodded. Let's document it first. Take photos, write down some of the names. The plan made sense. Maybe we'd stumbled upon something important, some local tradition or even a cold case crime scene. I volunteered to photograph the tree while they packed up camp. The fog parted slightly as I approached the oak. In the gray morning light, the scene looked even more unsettling. I raised my camera and froze. There, among the dozens of named ropes, was a new one. The rope looked freshly cut, the hemp fibers still bright and unworn. The tag read Mark 2023 in crisp black marker. My stomach lurched. No one had passed us in the night. No one could have placed this here without us hearing them. Unless they'd been watching, waiting for us to fall asleep. I fumbled for my phone, snapping pictures with trembling hands. As I circled the tree, I noticed something I'd missed in the darkness. A small pile of freshly turned earth at its base. partially hidden by fallen leaves. I crouched down and brushed the leaves aside. Something white gleamed in the soil. I pushed more dirt away, revealing what looked like a small piece of bone. My heart hammered against my ribs. I backed away, then turned to run, and collided with a solid chest. Whoa, there. The voice belonged to a middle-aged man in a faded Park Service uniform. His nameplate read, "Collins. You folks camping out here?" Relief washed over me. Yes, just back there. My friends and I, we found this tree, with all these names, and I think there might be remains buried here. Ranger Collins' expression didn't change. He glanced at the tree, then back at me with unsettling calm. "Been meaning to come by and clear this area," he said. "Local kids, probably. They play all kinds of pranks. But what about?" I pointed to the disturbed earth. "Probably just animal digging. Lots of possums and groundhogs in these hills." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You folks permitted to camp here?" The abrupt change of subject threw me. "We're just off the main trail. My friend said it should be fine." "Actually, this is restricted area. Archaeological site." He gestured vaguely around us. "I'll need to escort you back to the marked trail." Something about his manner set off alarm bells. The way his eyes kept darting to the tree. The slight tremor in his right hand. The Park Service patch on his shoulder that looked slightly different from the official ones I'd seen at the visitor center. "Let me get my friends," I said. "We'll pack up right away." "I'll come with you," he insisted, falling into step beside me. Back at camp, Alex and Maya were already packed. Their expressions shifted from relief to confusion when they saw Collins. "Found your friend taking quite an interest in the old oak," Collins told them. "I was just explaining this is a restricted area." Alex frowned. There were no signs. "Budget cuts?" Collins interrupted smoothly. "Can't mark everything. Now, if you'll follow me, I'll show you back to the main trail." We had little choice but to comply. As we hiked, Collins kept up a steady stream of local history and nature facts, as if we were on a guided tour. But whenever we tried to ask about the tree or the names, he skillfully changed the subject. An hour later, we reached the junction with the main trail. Collins pointed south. "Ranger station's 4 miles that way. You can report anything unusual there." His emphasis made it clear what he thought of our concerns. "Thanks for your help," I said, not meaning it. As he turned to leave, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. A coil of rope hanging from his belt, identical to those wrapped around the tree. And protruding from his pocket, the corner of a plastic tag. "One more thing," he called over his shoulder. "What were your names again?" From my report, we gave false names and watched him disappear into the woods. The moment he was out of sight, Maya grabbed my arm. "Did you see his boots? They had fresh dirt on them. The same color as—" "We need to get to that ranger station," Alex cut in. Now, we practically ran the 4 miles south. When we arrived, breathless and frantic, the real rangers were alarmed by our story. The senior ranger, a woman named Martinez, frowned deeply when we described Collins. "We don't have anyone by that name working this section," she said. "And there's no restricted archaeological site where you're describing." They sent a team to investigate, with us guiding them back to the tree. But when we arrived, the clearing was empty. No massive oak, no ropes, no freshly dug earth, just undisturbed forest floor. "Are you sure this is the spot?" Ranger Martinez asked. Maya pointed to our footprints from earlier that morning, still visible in the damp soil. Positive, it was right here. The rangers exchanged glances. I could read their thoughts clearly. Just another group of hikers with wild imaginations, wasting park resources. They might have dismissed us entirely, if not for what I found as we were leaving. A single rope lying partially hidden under leaves, apparently overlooked in the hasty cleanup. And still attached to it, the tag reading Beth 2007. The investigation that followed uncovered disturbing facts. Elizabeth Beth Weston had indeed gone missing while hiking the Blue Ridge Parkway in 2007. So had Daniel Fuentz in 1998, and Christopher Nowak in 2001. The names matched those we'd seen on the tree. No one matching Collins's description was found. though hikers occasionally reported being led back to the trail by a helpful ranger in that area. Most disturbing was what the forensic team eventually discovered when they excavated the site. Fragments of human remains buried in a rough circle around where the tree should have been. Carbon dating placed them anywhere from 5 to 40 years old. DNA testing is still ongoing, but preliminary matches have been made to 3 missing hikers. The tree itself was never found. Yesterday, I received a small package at my apartment. No return address, no note inside, just a plastic luggage tag and a short length of hemp rope. On the tag, written in fresh black marker, Sarah 2023. My real name. I've packed my car. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. New name, new city, because I understand now what the tree was. Not a memorial, but a record. A trophy collection. And somewhere in those misty mountains, the collector is still adding to it. If you go hiking along the Blue Ridge Parkway and meet a helpful ranger named Collins, turn around. Walk the other way. And whatever you do, don't tell him your name. 7 nights in the woods. 7 chances to disappear without a trace. Some of these campers escaped with their lives. Others were never seen again. And a few still don't know exactly what they encountered. One thing's certain. Nature doesn't care about your cell service. And not every trail leads home. If this kept you up, subscribe to Nightmare True Horror. We tell the stories that sleep won't let you forget. And the next time you unzip your tent to strange sounds in the dark, just remember, some things don't knock. They're already inside.